Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here and I hope you're all well. And you join me today in the HE-177. Yes, patch 177 is here. And we have the Heinkel. Oh boy, what a beautiful bomber this thing is. She is gorgeous, isn't she? The internal camera, so we can see the 7.7mm there. With our bomber slash gunner. The cockpit is really nice. And overall it's just a fantastic looking plane. You know, it just really looks good. And you gotta love when you call a base and somebody's just like, no, I'm going for that base. Even though I called it first, you know, just because people are just, assholes. Anyway, the 177 is here and it is just absolutely gorgeous. Just look at this thing. This is my first game in it. You will see I have a few unlocks already, just because I used some golden eagles. I'm just going to let these does just do whatever they need to do, and then I'm going to clean up afterwards, I think, or just go for a run on the airfield. Just going to keep gaining height here in this thing. Now, this plane does overheat relatively quickly, which is very accurate. So we are on a relatively chilly map here in Berlin, so it's not too bad. We're also at a very good altitude, so we have got the bonus of cold air. So we are just going to keep weaping and getting as high as we possibly can for the time being, just so we don't get too many. Now there we go, we're overheating already, so it doesn't take long for this thing to just burn up, which is great. Now this is a 4-engined bomber, the Griffin. It has basically a W12, I think it is, or a W24. I'm trying to think which one it is. Anyway, it's a W configuration. It's basically two engines stuck together, as you can see in there. Now, originally this plane was going to be a 4-engined bomber, and well, it was taken out of that role because of, well, the fact that the leader of the German military was a bit of an idiot and decided to make this a dive bomber instead of a quad-engined bomber. So it needed strengthened wings, of course. The spars, you can see, are quite a heavy spar on this thing. It needed to be strengthened. It had to be twin-engined, basically, to allow for that dive bombing. The wings were slightly shortened, which reduced its range and reduced its handling and climb rates and things like that. And basically, yeah, it didn't go too well in the end. Now, there was actually a fair amount of these produced. There was over 1,000 of these planes built, which does surprise a lot of people because it's one of those planes that people think of as a bit of a big failure. And it really wasn't. It was actually a very good bomber. It also was a good gun platform too. This plane was a very good bomb platform in its day, because it had a very good stability. It's a very stable plane, which is nice, and that meant it could be armed with the 50mm, what gun was it? I'm trying to think. The Pack, whatever it is. But it was going to be equipped with the Pack 50 as well, which was the 75mm found on the Panthers. So there was some possibility of that 75mm going into action. A couple of them were produced, and it would be interesting to see if they do make it into the game. There was a four-engined version in the plans. It was actually the Heinkel. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think it was the 219. I think they put it as. The HE-219 was going to be a four-engined version of this bomber, and it was basically designed to go on intercontinental raids. So attacking America was the main purpose for that plane. If it had been produced, it could have been a very effective bomber. But as I said, if it had been produced, and that's the big thing, is they weren't really produced in time, and the Luftwaffe really suffered with its bombers. You know, the Americans had fantastic bombers at the time, whereas Germany had these just lumbering, terrible dive bombers, which were just pretty much useless. Now we've got a Spitfire and a Focke-Wulf 190 up high, the NC900, and also so our bombs are going down here. A Typhoon and a P-51 actually close by, so we'll just watch our bombs drop here. This plane can carry a fair amount of bombs as well. With all the bomb upgrades, this thing is an absolute beast. Behemoth, so to say. As you can see, unfortunately I'm carrying the 500 kilogram bombs, and that's still a fair whack. You know, 1.56 tons of damage. Now, we're going to go into a dive, because we need to get down. We need to start heading towards our airfield. So let's see how well this thing goes as a dive bomber. Now, considering this was meant to be a dive bomber is just sheer stupidity, because it is just such a big plane. This thing is just huge. It's sort of a similar size to a Sterling, you know, and they wanted that to be a dive bomber. And as you can see, it just really was not up for the task at hand. It handled pretty well, though. Well, it handles pretty well, and it did fly pretty well as well. One of the interesting things for this plane was it was actually a platform for the German guided bombs, the radio guided bombs, such as the Fritz X and the Heinkel HS-293, I think it was. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. So, you know, it was capable of carrying these magnificent wonder weapons, which were going to be used on naval targets, basically. Because, you know, you can actually get a lot more. Well, it was a very accurate bomb to be used on naval vessels, as I say. What's showing up on my radar? Something. Ah, there it is. Something above me. I knew I could see something on the radar. So how is it in game? Well, it actually handles pretty well. It's not terrible for a heavy bomber. This thing is pretty good, and as you see, you get the heavy bomber spawn as well, which is really useful. You know, it is a very handy thing to have, especially against allies, because they don't tend to climb. I've noticed in a lot of games that they do climb, of course. You know, the Spitfires and the Mustangs and all of that, they do tend to climb quite a lot. We'll just rip off our flaps there. Didn't mean to press that button. Rip both of them off just to make it symmetrical. But yeah, as you can see, it handles relatively okay. The flaps are not great. They do come off very quickly and easily. Barely extended them there. It's got relatively good defensive armaments from the top. From the bottom, this thing is really vulnerable. Like most German bombers, it's just that sort of typical, you know, it just has the gondola, the iconic gondola at the front, which has your twin 13mm guns on board. And they're about as useful as a chocolate teapot, so to say. So we're scrubbing a lot of speed here in a very awkward manner. Now I'm going to actually coming in very hot for this landing. Let's put our gear down. Now, one of the beautiful things about this plane is actually the landing gear. We do have dual landing gear in the V configuration. And hopefully we've scrubbed off enough speed. We're coming in a bit hot here, in all honesty. This is probably going to be a terrible landing. I think I'm going to go around because, well, I don't like my chances of actually stopping this beast. But we'll touch her down a little bit. Yeah, I'm not going to make that. Let's just, let's see if we can get back up in the air and spin around, and we'll go for a secondary landing there. Without landing flaps, we do have a bit of trouble scrubbing off speed. This thing is very fast, actually, as well. That is one of the other things as well. As you can see, it's got great acceleration because it has got a ridiculous amount of power. The twin engines, as I say, really do make a difference. There's 2 planes left on the Allied team. P-51s left. And as you can see, we've gained 180 without too much problem there, which is a little bit problematic because we do want to land, of course. Let's try and scrub that speed off, and as you can see, you just get so much speed in this plane, and oh, don't crash into the house, don't crash into the house. So we better get our gear down. This is going to be a very dodgy landing. Coming in very hot here again. The landing gear are pretty sturdy on this plane. One of the issues, though, was the fact that this plane did have a tendency to break up on landings just because, especially the extra weight, really did affect it. Now, it's a drag wheel plane, so you've got the wheel at the back. You've got the 2 heavy-duty landing gear at the front, which, as I say, come down in that V configuration and have the forward-facing dampeners. So it is pretty good at landing. It seems. Well, it's not too hard to land, but as I say, scrubbing off that speed is very, very tricky. It does have a lot of speed in it, basically. Let's have a little look around the cockpit again while we wait for repairs. So it is a beautiful cockpit, absolutely stunning, and I really do look forward to the day that bomber cockpits are actually finished. Now, the important thing is to see, let's see how we take off. Because one of the issues with the HE-177 is it doesn't take off if you're carrying a heavy bomb load. If you're carrying 4 1,000 kilogram bombs, you can't actually really take off in the dough. So hopefully the Heinkel will actually be able to take off with a full load. I'll be interested to see how well it does when it's got a full load. It does feel a lot faster than the HE-177 though. It has got better speed. It does sort of seem to pick up that speed very well. And although it's quite a heavy plane, it does seem to take off relatively well. It reminds me a little bit of the Lancaster, just in the way it handles. No, actually, the Halifax. I'd say the Halifax a little bit more than the Lancaster. it has that little bit of extra performance that really helps. It also climbs very well, as you can see. We're in a, what are we in? About a 10-degree climb angle here, and we're still gaining speed without wepping, which is very good for a heavy bomber. Looks like that doe is having a hard time. Don't like his chances. Now we've got one Focke-Wulf 190 busy killing AI. One P-51 is down. Now we're actually going to turn in here and see if we can get some ground targets. Might as well raise up flaps. Because I don't think this game is going to last much longer. There's that P-51 over there. And he's going to get absolutely decimated soon. Looks like the doe has made it. He's broken off. So let's see if we can find some ground targets to pound quickly. Overall, this... Nope, the doe has gone down. Overall, this plane does feel pretty good. As I say, it is just gorgeous, and I'm so glad it is here, because I've got a special place in my heart for this plane. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favourite looking planes of all time. The Germans had something with their bombers, Heinkel had something with their bombers that just no other plane designer really managed to do it. And that's the end of that game. Unfortunately, we didn't get a second run in, but not too bad. We finished relatively low just because we do lack that payload, but 715 is not too bad. Overall, the plane does feel good. It handles really, really well, and as I said, I really do like it. I look forward to playing it a bit more, and I'm just glad there's another bomber, and I'm glad Germans finally have a heavy bomber, because they've needed it for so long. I don't think it's going to be overly useful. Well, actually, it might be good in RB, in ground RB, sorry. Just because it has got that really good payload, and it does work as a dive bomber, of course. Yeah, we didn't make a huge amount of lions there, of course, but not too bad all in all. We did complete our 7.92mm turret, and we got a relatively nice amount of experience in that game. So let's just purchase one of those. We'll research that one. And I'm going to have to do it because I really want those 1,000 pounders on board. Let's just research the engine, get that done. Get that reward. What have we got in the war bond shop at the moment? Nothing overly interesting there. But yeah, overall this plane is really, really good. 5.3 as well. It is a competitive field. There we go, we can get the 4 1,000 pounders, and that will mean we have oh no, good, awesome. So the 4 1,000 pounders are internal as well, which is really nice. I'm kind of interested to see the 18,000s, because I think they will be on the wings, but you get 2 of those, and I really hope... Unfortunately, if they're on the wings, it does mean that you have to drop them both at the same time, which is really, really awkward. It really makes things quite tricky. Yeah, I kind of hope that they're not wing mounted, but I got a feeling they will be. So it means that you're just going to decimate a base. But the one advantage of that is in RB, diving, you're going to be an absolute monster, because it's going to be basically just a very, very strong bomb for ground units. If we just have a look at the penetration value of it. The 1800s, so radius of 112 foot, fragmentation radius of 700 feet, and penetration from the high explosive action of almost 238 millimeters. It's going to absolutely decimate anyone in a cap circle. It may even decimate some of the lighter vehicles at slightly longer range. Anyway, I do hope you've enjoyed this video, chaps. Let me know below. As I say, I really do like this plane, and I look forward to playing it a bit more. I'm going to do a proper history of video of this plane as well at some stage. Alright, until next time, this is me, Scree, out. Bye bye.